maybe the worst agent in the world that just doesn't do their job at all. It doesn't do you any good to badmouth them. And that's actually against the Missouri Association of Realtors ethics thing to begin with too. So first off, I want to talk about earnest money. We've seemed to have had some problems with buyer's agents and listings not keeping track of the earnest money being deposited. The contract says, and there's a place that you've got it to check, or that you're going to get it, and it has to be deposited within 10 days of the contract date. That is, it's in the hands of the title company, and you need to have a receipt that they received it on that date or before the 10 days is up. This is what's happened. We've had agents, maybe as sellers agents, that haven't kept on top of that, and then 3 weeks down the road, they find out that there was never any earnest money deposited. And then the buyer backs out of the contract. Now, who are they going to be mad at? They're going to be mad at you because you didn't keep on top of that earnest money being deposited. So whether you're the buyer's agent or the seller's agent, you need to know that that earnest money is there to pay for. An example, the buyer comes in, doesn't put his earnest money up. You don't keep on top of that, and they go and have inspections, and then they get out of the contract and they don't pay for the inspection. That inspector can bill the seller for the inspection, even though the buyer is the one that ordered it. So, you know, inspections be $500–600. Please be aware that that earnest money is very, very important, and you need to be on top of it. I never have the buyers send the earnest money directly to the title company. I have them send it to me, and I usually have them send it to me at my home. So I've got it on my calendar that the contract was written on, was accepted on the 1st. So I have to have the earnest money in by the 10th. And I want that earnest money in my hands, so I take it directly to the title company, get a receipt, and I know it's there. If you're the seller's agent, you don't have that opportunity, but you certainly can call the title company and say, have you gotten the earnest money yet? So please, please keep on top of that. That's a very important aspect. We've had some problems where people have backed out of the contract, and the sellers have moved their furniture. How awful is that? They moved their furniture thinking they had a contract, and then the people back out of it, and they never really had a contract because they didn't have the earnest money in. That's part of the contract, and it has to be fulfilled. The other problem we have is always the personal property. You need, as the seller's agent or the buyer's agent, to know what's on that contract. If it says the boat is included and it wasn't on the MLS sheet to be included, you need to make sure that your seller knows that they're saying the boat's included too. So you need to read that contract and explain it to your sellers and your buyers. If your buyer's writing a contract and the MLS sheet says that the hoist's included, and yet they don't put the hoist on the contract, it's not included. The MLS sheet is not part of the contract, and we never put as per MLS sheet because they can be changed, but we do write it out in what's included and what's not included. We've had several agents having to buy things that were unnecessary just because they were busy and didn't take the time to look over the contract. Guys, you can be busy, but the very most important thing you're doing is when you're negotiating the contract and making sure everybody knows exactly what's going on. So you have got to take the time, and don't tell me or somebody else, well, I was so busy I just didn't have time to look at it. Oh my gosh, what a silly answer that is, that you didn't have time to look at the contract and explain it to the buyer or the seller, whichever one you're working on. Then we go back to agency laws. Remember that you're no one's agent unless you have a signed listing, which you're a seller's agent, or a signed buyer's agency agreement, which you're a buyer's agent. Both of those then can become dual if you have both the buyer and the seller on the same piece of property. The one thing that you must make sure is that if you are doing a for sale by owner, you must have an authorization to show. The Missouri Real Estate Commission, and see the difference between the Missouri Real Estate Commission governs our licenses. They can take our licenses away. The Missouri Association of Realtors governs our MLS membership. They can take our MLS membership away, which if you can't belong to the MLS, you're not going to be able to do anything. So the Missouri Association of Realtors is a stronger, they do more guidelines as to ethics and that type of thing than the Missouri Real Estate Commission is. They go on the law of everything. But when you're talking about authorizations to show, the Missouri Real Estate Commission says you cannot talk about a piece of property, advertise it, or write a contract on it unless you have a listing agreement, which would be your listing agreement or through the MLS, or an authorization to show allowing you to sell that property. Now, usually on the authorization to show, you're going to put your commission in that you're going to get paid from the seller. Sometimes they may say, I'm not paying anything, so then you're going to have to rely on your buyer to pay you with the buyer's agency agreement and what you put in there. So make sure that you do that. If you put 0 in the authorization as compensation, and you've got 0 on the buyer's agency agreement, you basically could be working for the buyer because you have a buyer's agency agreement, but not get paid any commission. So be aware of those type of things, that those have to be done, and how important it is. When you are doing an authorization to show, you are not an agent for the seller. So you are not a seller's agent. You would be, if you have a buyer's agency agreement, you'd be a buyer's agency working for the buyer on both the sell side and the list side. So make sure that you realize that an authorization does not construe or allow you to be an agent of theirs, because you're not. It says it right on the contract. Also, the authorization is for you and our office only. So you can't do an authorization to show and tell some RE/MAX agent about this listing and get paid, because it states on there it's for you and your office only. So if you're going to tell a RE/MAX agent about it, they're liable to be able to go get their own authorization or listing. So do not do that. Authorization is for you and your office only. That kind of gets into showing non-MLS listings. And I strongly urge you not to endeavor to work out of your area of expertise, which is what our MLS is. That's your area of expertise. In other words, you've got an aunt that wants to sell or buy a house in Columbia, Missouri. You don't belong to the Columbia MLS. And so you're not an expert in that area. So that's where you should get a referral to an agent up there. And we have agents in Columbia, and I mean, there's Keller agents everywhere, but we've got agents in our own office in the Columbia and the Jeff City MLSs. So I strongly suggest, I belong to both the Jeff City and the Lake Ozark Board of Realtors MLSs, but I don't go to Jeff City and show property, even though I can get into the MLS and find comps and do my job. It's because I'm not versed enough in that area to know what's good areas, what's bad areas, what title companies to use, what lender to use, what inspectors to use, all those kind of things that are really important. So showing a property that's not in your area is not smart. If you've got a buyer's agency agreement and you think, oh, well, I'm gonna write a contract for my aunt. She's found this house, and the agent showed it to her that has it listed, but I'm going to write the contract. Can you legally do that? Yeah. Can you ethically do that? No. And the reason I say that is because you're not an expert in that area. So are you doing your aunt justice being her agent, which means that you're going to do everything you can to make it a smooth transition and put her in the best area and help guide her as to what a good offer would be by comping other sold and active listings in that area. You can't do that if you don't belong to that MLS. So the smart thing to do is always, hey, get a referral. Get paid 25% for doing nothing except making a phone call. I mean, that's easy money. really easy money and keeps you out of problems with other areas. Also remember that if you do go outside of your area and you don't belong to the MLS, they don't have to compensate you. The same thing if an agent from St. Louis who doesn't belong to our MLS wants to write an offer down here. Either way, there needs to be a cooperation agreement. It's required that we cooperate with everyone, but it's not required that we compensate everyone. By belonging to our MLS at Lake Ozark, Bagnell Dam MLS, we've agreed whatever's on our MLS sheet, that's the amount of commission we're going to pay that agent. If they don't belong to our MLS, or if you don't belong to their MLS, we have no agreement, no cooperation agreement. So we do have to cooperate, that's the law, but we don't have to compensate. So think about writing a contract and going through all the stuff that you go through to get a deal through on something outside of our area, and then you don't get paid because you never had their broker sign a cooperation agreement. So that's a form that's in our MAR forms. It's a cooperation agreement that you must have if you go outside of our area with an MLS that you're not a member of, or if an agent from another company comes in and does that. You actually can put on your listing agreement when you list a piece of property, if you are going to cooperate with members outside of our MLS. Compensate, I'm sorry, not cooperate. You have to cooperate, but compensate. So that if you're not going to do that, you have to check that box that says I'm not going to compensate, or put something in there that maybe if it's a 7% commission and you're going to split it 50-50 with our MLS members, that maybe if it's outside of our area, you split it to 2.5%. I mean, you can do that. It needs to be in writing, and it needs to be on your listing agreement. Do I have any questions so far that need to be addressed?
I was wondering if at the end you could touch base on the coming soon feature that got added to our MLS and what the rules are around that.
Soon means that you have it listed. You don't put something in coming soon if you don't have a signed listing agreement. The reason you might have a coming soon is you've gone out, you've taken the pictures, you've done everything there is to be done, but the people are going to be down here for Thanksgiving and they don't want anybody at the house time. So they listed it today, but they don't want it shown for the next 2 weeks. Okay. So you put coming soon. And I think it's a 5-day, is it a 5-day period that you have for coming soon?
I can't remember. That's kind of why I wanted to touch base.
Can't remember either, but there is a set date that it automatically goes active. You do not put something in coming soon if you don't have a signed listing agreement. Again, you can't advertise anything unless you have a signed listing agreement, and that is advertising. So that's against MREC rules. Also, if you put coming soon and you don't have it listed, what's to keep another agent from another company going out and getting that listing? Nothing. So make sure before you ever advertise anything that you have a signed listing agreement. So on the listing, you can actually put that they signed it on the 1st, but it's not going to be active until the 7th or something like that.
What would be the benefit of doing that?
The only benefit would be, and I have mixed feelings about that. The benefit would be that people would know about it ahead of time. Now, it's not syndicated out, but the agents get it. So they see a house that they've got buyers that would be interested. They can get them set up to come down and be there when it's active. Does that make sense?
Okay. Sort of.
Yeah, sort of. I agree. I agree. It's
Claire confirmed it's 5 days.
5 days. So it automatically goes active in 5 days if you put a coming soon on there. So you can't say coming soon and it's going to be 2 weeks out. It's going to be active in 5 days. So.
Okay, thank you.
Good thing to say. Title companies, so yeah, title companies are so busy we don't hear right away when check is mailed directly to them, and mail is not always reliable and timely. That's very true. So that's going back to the earnest money. and being on top of it. So if the title company hasn't got the earnest money and you're the seller's agent, I would definitely call that agent and say, hey, when was it mailed? Where was it mailed to? And it's not here yet. If the earnest money is not there in time for the 10 days, then there needs to be an amendment to the contract that states that the earnest money will be here in the next 3 days or whatever it is, and your seller has to sign that so he's aware. The whole thing with everything is always to keep everybody involved in the process educated as to what's going on. So I haven't got my earnest money yet. The 10 days is today. I call the agent. They say, oh, they mailed it yesterday. I say, well, then we need an amendment to change the date, and I need to get the seller to sign that so he knows. Can the seller back out? Yes, he can. He can back out of the contract because they haven't fulfilled their part of the contract. Get your referrals and do less work. Yeah. Yeah, and Robin State is an agent in the Como Board of Realtors, so as well as Jeff City. Good words of wisdom. We have Kansas City and St. Louis agents wanting to sell outside our area. Yeah, we have a lot of that. Because of MLS of choice, it makes it a little bit easier because those members that want to sell in our area can join our MLS, and then they're part of our MLS. But we've always had, I've been down here a long time, and we've always had problems with agents from other areas wanting to come in and sell something, and they know nothing about the area. And they think they do, but your thing is to explain to them, how can you represent your buyer if you can't do the comps to see what's sold and what's active? They can see what's active, but they can't see what's sold because that's only privy to our MLS. The other thing would be to ask them, what do you know about boat docks and electrical inspections on boat docks and floodplains and shared septics and shared driveways and all the stuff that we get involved with down here that is not typical in their area, and they usually don't know anything about that. So, you know, we've done deals with area agents outside of our area, and then all of a sudden they go, well, I didn't know that the seller was supposed to pay for the inspection for the electric company to come out and inspect to get the permit number. They didn't know that, so they didn't ask for it, so we didn't have to do it. That's why we do Addendum A, which says they want to have that done. Inspections. Another thing is always keep in mind, when you write a contract or you receive a contract on your listing, you should automatically be putting in whatever system you have to remind you when it's supposed to be, how many days they've got for inspections, how many days they've got for their financing, whatever the time frames are for their earnest money. All those things should be put somewhere that you can always see and remind you 2 or 3 days before it's due that it's not been done. Because if you are a buyer and you have that you're going to have the inspections done by the 10th, and you don't get the inspection notice out until the 11th, virtually you're out of time frame, and that seller does not have to do anything, and you can't get out of the contract because the inspections, because you didn't do your due diligence. So all those time frames that we have, loan commitment, title commitment, earnest money, inspections, all those things need to be put on your calendar, whether you're the selling agent or the listing agent, so you keep on top of when it's supposed to be done to keep out of problems. The whole thing we're doing as agents is to keep out of problems. Buyers and sellers don't know this. They just write the contract and they rely on you. So they're relying on you to keep them on top of what's going on. And if it takes talking to their lender or the appraiser, I've done that. The last deal I had, it wasn't going to be appraised until the day that the loan was commitment was due. So what did I need to do? I needed to either get that appraisal done earlier, which I did by calling the appraiser. The lender cannot call the appraiser but I could, to say, Mr. Appraiser, I have to have this done 2 or 3 days earlier. Can you do that? And believe me, the kinder and nicer you are, the more likely you're to get that done. And he got it done 3 days before, and so we had our loan commitment by the date. If I hadn't been able to get him to do that, then I would have needed to have automatically extended that time period to make it a longer date to get the inspection, the appraisal done and the loan commitment done. Do I have any other questions? Jordan has sent us a checklist that she personally used.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah, and I've seen that. It's very, very good. So you can put it in your loop, and then have it remind you, whether it reminds you on your phone or your email or whatever it does. It's a good thing to have.
Marilyn Hilton wanted to know if we have a preferred inspector list that can be shared.
We do not. If you guys would like to send me your preferred inspectors, I will make a list and share it with the agents. I can do the same thing with lenders and title companies if you'd like. You all are free to use your own. I don't qualm about telling people that this is the inspector that I use most of the time. And if you want a couple of other ones to look at, you know, I'll contact you and then give you the prices. We all know there's good inspectors and there's horrible inspectors. I haven't found a great inspector yet. If you all find one, let me know. It seems like they either go overboard or underboard, one or the other, on their inspections and do things. But if you all will send me those lists, I can put one together. And Jordan Salisbury says she's an agent in Jeff City as well. Do I have any other
Comments
questions?
that are on Facebook, I'm putting in here as well. That way they're in both spots.
Okay. Okay. And the reason inspector's scared by buyers with what he said to them and would not put it in writing. So looking for a new list, she is a broker, so she knows better. Yeah, I know we can have inspectors that can scare people to death and ones that don't. And some of them you go, oh my gosh, why did they bring that up? So I don't make decisions ever for my buyers when they do an inspection. So in other words, when I get an inspection and it's sent to them and they send me a copy, I never tell them, well, you need to have this and this and this taken care of. I say, look over what you want to have done and tell me what you want to have addressed in your inspection notice. If I made the suggestion that we had this and this checked and I didn't check this and this, those would be the things that would go wrong after they close and they would be back on me. So we don't make decisions for our buyers or our sellers as to what they want to have done. Sometimes I might go, if it's nitpicking on little things that, you know, the carpet's buckled or whatever, it's like, really? You know, do you want this deal to fall through? Because that doesn't mean it will, but it could. So always keep in mind that it's the buyer's decision as what they want to have fixed or how much they want to be compensated for. I've also had some problems with things not being done. In other words, you send in your inspection notice and you say, the garage door has to be fixed prior to closing. And guess what? Closing date comes, you do your walkthrough and the garage door is not fixed. What do? You need to have something in writing signed by both the buyers and sellers that it will be fixed after closing. But it's best, always best, if you have them pay for that to the vendor or hold the money in escrow until it's done. There's no way except to go to court and sue someone to get something done after it closes. So in other words, the title company has you sign something that says that everything's fine and you accepted everything. We do a walkthrough. that says everything's fine, or you say these things are noted. You want both the buyer and the seller to sign that, not just the buyer. The seller needs to be aware that they have to fix this and give a time frame. Always have a time frame of when things had to be done. And sometimes you actually need an attorney to draw those things up, because it's not only a time frame, but it's also what happens if it doesn't get done by that time frame. An example would be, it's winter time, I can't move my hoist until April. April comes along and they haven't moved their hoist. What happens if they don't move it by that time frame? So please talk to me when you have those kind of questions. Let me help walk you through what we should do to get them taken care of correctly. Again, if it's all in writing and signed by both buyer and seller, it's a different situation than, oh, well, he said he would do this. Gosh, they always say they'll do something, and then they get their money, and a month down the road, no, I'm not going to pay for that. So do not just take people's word for stuff. They can be the nicest people in the world, the most honest people, but when it comes down to getting back in their pocket, they won't send it out to you or get it taken care of. I have that a lot. And so then it ends up that the agent is either going to try to save their reputation by paying for it themselves, or they've got a bad mark on their name. Any other questions we have? Again, I want you to please take your time when you're writing a buyer's agency, when you're writing a contract. Make sure it's filled out properly. Go over it with your buyer when you write the contract, just so, you know, when I doing things via DocuSign, I ask them, what do you want to pay? When do you want to close? Are you sure you can close on that date? Because that date's set in stone unless we get an amendment changing the day. So you can't write the date as of the 1st of December only to find out, oh, I forgot that I was going to Bermuda the 1st of December, so I can't close on that date. They need to make sure that those dates are correct. Another thing I've had problems with, and it's always difficult because you have to do what's best for your customer or your client. But the very first thing when you meet a buyer is you need to ask them if they've been working with another agent. And if they have they signed a buyer's agency? Don't take, when they say no, they haven't signed a buyer's agency, that's God's truth, because sometimes they have and they just don't realize it. So when I talk to someone that says, yeah, I've been looking with maybe someone else in my office, I looked with it, I said, why aren't you using them? Well, they couldn't go with me today because they were busy. I would say, let me call them and see what we can do. I would call that agent, say, look, Bob Smith just called me. You've been showing him property. He wants to go out to look today. He said you can't do it. Can you do it? Or do you want me to do it and you pay me a referral or work out something? Be upfront with all the other agents, whether they're in our office, but especially in our office, but also if they're in an office outside of us. You don't want to get in an arbitration hearing if you don't have to. An arbitration hearing is where you go to a Missouri Association of Realtors and file a complaint that you think you were owed the commission. Now, you could have a buyer that says, yeah, I looked with so-and-so 2 weeks ago and they haven't contacted me since, and I don't think I signed a buyer's agency agreement. If you go show them a house that agent showed them, I would call that agent and say, hey, I just showed them this house, but they were upset with you because you haven't got back in contact with them, so I'm working with them. That time they'd say, well, wait a minute. You know, I've seen them stuff every day for the last 2 weeks, which that buyer seems to have forgotten about. Or, yeah, they did sign a buyer's agency with me for 6 months, you know. So know up front, don't work for nothing, and also don't try to step on other agents' toes. It's very, very important that we work together as an industry and we're not at each other's throats trying to outdo someone else. Now, can a buyer be alienated by a buyer's agent? Yes, they can. In which case, that buyer's agency needs to know. But I would always go through and write the contract, show them and write the contract, contact that agent, say, hey, we got a problem. You showed them this property 2 weeks ago. They came to me because you hadn't contacted them. I wrote the contract. What can we work out? Maybe to save face, I pay them a 25% referral. Maybe I don't pay them anything, but I'm upfront with them. I'm honest with them. I let them know what's going on. Always, immediately call that other agent to see where they're at with it. Does anybody had trouble with that? No?
Marilyn added to make sure that your buyer's agency does not expire during the process, which is actually something that I ran into with somebody that I worked with a couple weeks ago to help them get the closing into command and everything. And it was 2 days before the closing, we realized that the buyer's agency had expired. And
Wait a minute. It can expire. You take a listing. It expires on the 2nd. You get an accepted contract on the 1st. You don't have to relist that property. You have a buyer's agency. It expires on the 2nd, and you got an accepted contract on the 1st. You got it prior to it expiring. Okay? So it doesn't have to be extended. It's better to have it extended because maybe the deal falls through. And if you can extend it, absolutely do it, whether it's the listing or the buyer's agency. But just because it expired and you already had it under contract, you're still their agent. You were their agent when you wrote the contract.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say is you are their agent, but if you have issues and don't close, then you will want to have had extended that. And there is an amendment in our forms that you can use to extend that date.
Exactly. So keeping things going is a really good thing. Do you have to? No, but realize that if it bombs, you don't have a listing anymore or you don't have a buyer's agency anymore because it has expired.
so there's an amendment for the buyer's agency agreement. Awesome. I love this class. I'm just
Yay. Hey, Karen, do you have something that you want to address?
Mostly we still have a lot of people forgetting that they're designated agents and marking those things because I send those kinds of things back all the time. So they do need to remember to mark that.
And that's on the
that-
contract where it says agent assisting the buyer, agent assisting the seller, your buyer's agent. Down below it says designated.
Yes, they missed that box 416 and 423. I think they are
Okay.
all the time.
Okay.
section 25 of that.
Yes, section 25. That or they forget, like if you are the seller and the buyer's agent writes, the contract, they don't always put what you as the seller, your relationship is. So you need to remember that does need to be marked.
Yeah, when you write a contract as a buyer's agent, you need to fill out both sides. You know from the listing agreement who the agent is, what their numbers are, what kind of agency they have. That needs to be filled out when your buyer signs a contract, as well as your side as what you're working for. When you are a seller's agent and you get that contract and it's got their stuff filled out but doesn't have your stuff filled out, you need to fill it out and sign it. That little thing right there is telling both the buyer and the seller what kind of agency you are and that you have told them what kind of agency you are. So it's very important that that's filled out, not left blank. And I have seen a lot of agents that don't fill it out on both sides. And it's right there in the MLS as to what kind of agency they
How
are.
do you know what the other side is? Where is that defined on the MLS?
It's on the
It'll be
MLS
on the-
sheet.
Okay.
MLS sheet says that.
Is
It
that
says,
the commission stuff?
down by the commissions, it says, you know, that they have an exclusive right to sell, they have their designated agent, their
She's getting
whatever.
it now.
Yeah.
Makes sense now.
And it has the number of the office that needs to be put on there, the number of the agent that needs to be put on there, their MLS numbers, that kind of stuff. So
And they ask for the license number. We have a lot of agents who put the company ID and not the license number in that section. And it really does state license number.
yeah. Other questions on that? Karen, anything else that you're catching that gets
I know that you hit on the inventory lists,
right?
and we really need to be more mindful of that, and that everybody, both sides, then needs to sign and date that. And we don't mean as seen on whatever date. We don't mean an excluded list. We need a list of what is included and what is conveying.
Right. I've had a lot of agents ask me, well, everything's going except a couple of pieces. Can I just do an excluded list? No, you need an included list because that goes by bill of sale when they close. And then I've had agents say, well, I've got the buyer and they don't have an inventory list, but they said everything stays. I said, well, if they won't get it, then you need to get it. I'm sorry, that takes time, but you need to go out and make a list and have it signed by both the buyer and the seller that it's included in the sale. Because believe you me, they'll say everything's included, but they forgot this or this piece that they're going to take. Or as they're picking up their clothes, they go, oh, I don't want to leave this, I don't want to leave that. And that's something that the buyer really wanted. So if you make that list, it's so much better.
Yeah, I will say when we were buying our house, it was almost empty, virtually empty. There were several boxes of brand new fans though, brand new ceiling fans, and an inventory list was never made. Those fans weren't put in the contract, and the listing agent came and took everything out of it. And we were told, well, it looks like the house has already been emptied. I would assume that everything in here is staying. So we, as purchasers, didn't know that needed to be in anything. And sure enough, the listing agent came and took every single thing that was left in the house out. And we were stuck with these old, nasty, ugly ceiling fans.
And this was
there were
after
3 boxes of brand new ones with receipts sitting in the
this
garage.
was after you closed.
Huh?
I would have argued with that. I'd say
Well,
that
she came and
listing
got
agent.
it in between the last time that we had walked through it, which was a week before we closed, and then the actual closing date. So she cleared it out right before the closing.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
happened.
Another thing that I've seen a lot of lately is people not getting disclosures. And it's like, okay, so if you are the listing agent and you need a lake and pond or you need the water well, you need to get those. And if you are representing the buyer, you really need to get those from that other agent because you're putting yourself at risk if you're not getting those.
Protection for the seller, the buyer, and the agents is the disclosures, the inspections, and the inventory list. Those are things that keep people out of court and there's no misunderstandings. Also, I've seen this happen, and it's like, duh. You have a lakefront home, and it's right evident that the driveway goes through the neighbor's lot. You can kind of see that. You know what I'm talking about? In other words, it's too steep to go straight in like this, so it goes across the guy's house that's over here. It goes across to over here. You need to find out if there's an easement for that. So common sense as a buyer's agent would be, you know what? We need to make sure that there's an easement for this driveway. So you write that into the contract. Seller to supply easement for a driveway. Maybe he's already got it, that's fine. If you're taking the listing, it's the same thing. You're taking a listing and you see that the driveway or something looks that possibly could be on the neighbor's property. you need to verify that it's correct or that there's an easement or something done with that.
How do you verify that? Does that come with the title work?
It come with the title work, and your title company you can call them and say, hey, can you see if there's an easement for this? There's a shared well. You list a piece of property and they go, oh yeah, we share the well with the next door neighbor. Do you have a well agreement? I think so. Find out whether they have a well agreement, because if they don't, they need that, because the lender will not loan if there's not a well agreement, if it's shared septic, shared well, or whatever. So you've got to have those things. So be upfront. They bought it 15 years ago. There was no rules about those kind of things, and lenders would loan on it. They don't do it now. So make sure that you are proactive and look at the property and say, oh, or it's quite evident that the boat dock, you can look at the line. You can see where the seawall is, which is probably where the line is. You can see where the post is up here, the stake is, and you look down and you can see that the dock that's with your property is over that line or too close to it. You need to find out from Ameren UE if that's in there correctly, if they've got something that the neighbor says, yeah, you can be over the line. So be proactive. Just because it's that way and they bought it 2 or 3 years ago, or 5 years ago, or 10 years ago, doesn't mean it's correct. Maybe they paid cash. Nothing was checked on it. So you want to make sure, if you see things that could be potential problems down the road, you want to take care of those and handle them up front, not fight with them afterwards. Because do I want to buy a house that I have to move the dock and get new permits and stuff? Make sure that that dock that's there. I had this with my last listing. He bought the house 15 years ago and had a permit, but when he bought it, the dock had been added onto, and the previous seller had not updated that permit. So when we went to get our permit, it wasn't the correct dock. So he had to redo all those, and he had to pay to get it redone with Ameren, which cost him like $500 or $600 plus the time to do it, draw it out and all that kind of stuff. But we knew it ahead of time that we needed to take care of it because it wasn't the same dock that was there.
Marilyn Gilpin commented in the chat, should we say on the inventory list that is left as a seller's convenience at no money value to satisfy most lenders? Should that only be in the contract, or does that need to be listed?
That shouldn't be in the contract at all. You should not put it in the contract. Most lenders, if they say, if you put in there included an inventory list, they're going to jump that out. Some of them will accept that as a convenience to the seller and no value to the buyer, but not all will. So I would strongly suggest that the inventory list be sent along with the contract. Here's my contract. It says nothing about furniture list. And here's my furniture list. It says these items are included in the sale of this property for the contract dated so and so. If you want to put it as a convenience to the seller with no value to the buyer, you can do that, but have it separate and signed at the same time they sign the contract, okay?
Okay.
Can I just do a couple housekeeping things?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so
Whatever you want, Karen.
Yeah. This has to do with when you're in command. Please make sure you name your opportunity address. Please make sure you submit it before the day it closes. And
I can't tell you how important that is. Look at it this way. Karen gets a check, a closing, and then she goes into command only to see that it was just now sent in. The listing was just now sent in. The sales contract was just sent in. And the closing was just now sent in. And guess what? There's several things wrong. You've missed things. How hard is it to get that corrected after you've closed? Do it immediately. You get a listing contract. It's signed by everybody. Make sure you send it in and submit it for review. Then when you get the contract signed and accepted, immediately submit it for review. So Karen can say, hey, we need this, this, and this. That way you can take care of it appropriately and not look like an idiot for not doing it ahead of time. How hard is it to get something signed after the buyer and seller have already signed and closed on the deal? It's very hard.
Or case in point, right now, I have a check on my desk that goes with nothing that is in command.
So she's got money for closing, but no command documents.
So I can't tell you how much time Monica and I both spend searching to try to match things up and find where it goes. So just address.
It's so simple. It's so simple. I don't care whether you're doing your contracts by hand and sign them, scan them and put them into command, or whether you're doing them through DocuSign or Dotloop, get them into command and then hit that submit button.
And if you guys are finding that you don't really want to use command, I am personally training 2 transaction coordinators right now that will be available starting early next month for business, and they get paid by transaction. So if it's something that you don't want to learn, like I have a couple of agents that just don't want to learn another system, so they pay me to take care of submitting all of their documents in command for them. I'm happy to get you in contact with the 2 people that I've personally trained, and I will be overseeing every aspect of what they do, the duration of them working with us. So if that's a conversation that you guys want to have, know that that's an option. And because they get paid by transaction, if you guys don't close, they don't get paid. They work on the same basis that you do, and they don't get paid until you guys are paid. And it makes it to where you don't have to pay hourly for someone, and you don't have to necessarily use them on every transaction if you don't want to. But just another option out there.
It's a great option, because maybe you don't want to learn it or you don't have time to do it. Pay somebody whatever. It's not a large amount to take care of it for you and make sure it's done. That way you get paid and they get paid.
And it frees you up once you're past inspections. You don't have anything that they can't take care of after the inspections negotiations are finished. And it frees you up to deal with your buyers more often, or to go on more listing appointments, or to lead generate more often. So it really creates an efficiency for your business. It's cost effective. And like I said, if it's something that you guys want to talk about, just shoot me an email. I'm happy to jump on a private Zoom meeting with you or meet you in the office and have that conversation.
Cool. Karen, do you have anything else, babe?
Only that, most everybody knows where I am. If you have a question, I'm here every day.
And she is, and she takes good care of you. You have to realize that both Karen and I and everyone in here is here to keep things smooth, our reputation good, our contracts good, to get them closed if at all possible, and to keep us out of trouble. I'm available. I'm not here in the afternoons very often, but you can always reach me at my home, 573-392-7157. If I don't answer the phone, leave a message. I'll get back to you, and I'll let you know what needs to be done. I will go over a contract with you. Karen will go over a contract with you. I'll go over, if you got a problem with an agent, I sometimes step in and talk to the broker for you, and we get things resolved. If you have trouble with a lender, sometimes a different aspect or a different set of eyes on something can see through it. You get upset over something. Talk to me and let's work it out. That's what I'm here for. And we want this to be good experiences for the buyer and the seller and both agents and the company. Of course, we want to get paid. We want to get paid what we're worth. We don't want to do something for nothing. I'm getting a lot of people saying, oh, I've got a friend that wants to buy a house in Kansas City. Refer them. Well, they don't want to pay a commission. Well, guess what? That's part of life. You can't. We're realtors. We get paid for what we do. Don't say, oh, I can do this for $1,000. I'm not going to let you do that. You're working as an attorney, and you have no business doing that. If you have a buyer that says, I looked at a for sale by owner, but I want you to write the contract, you have to get the authorization to show from the seller and decide who's paying you, and 3% minimum and get that done so you can write the contract. You sell a $500,000 house for your Aunt Mary and you get paid $1,000. How much liability do we have on that $500,000 house? 500,000, and we got paid $1,000. Something goes wrong, and it does. Then here we are coughing up money that we didn't even make. So we don't do things for free. We're reasonable, and I'll listen to your reasoning behind why you want to do this or whatever. But I had a call the other day for somebody that wanted to do something out of our area, and I says, and it was for their brother, write a contract. They'd already seen it with the listing agent. They just want to, but it was, I said, you shouldn't do that. You should not do that. Call an agent in that area, have them pay your referral, get paid for doing nothing except making a phone call, and make sure it's handled correctly. Any more questions?
Goes unpunished.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. All right, guys. If there's nothing else, we'll stop our Zoom, and hopefully, again, please, if you have questions or problems, call me. If you have questions with how to put things into command or something, don't call me. Call Karen or Elise or somebody. But if you're having trouble with a buyer, seller, a contract, what do I do? Make sure you've got those dates. Make sure that earnest money gets in. Make sure you know who you're representing. Make sure that they haven't seen it with another agent. And if they have, please call me and I'll explain to you what the best scenario would be. You know, we do have buyers that go, I went with this guy and yeah, I signed it, but I can't stand him. He's rude and obnoxious. He's forcing me into buying something. I'd say, go for it. We'll fight it, you know, that type of thing if we go to arbitration. So, but if it's, oh, he didn't have time. Well, let's see what's going on here. Okay.
Awesome. I always enjoy this class personally. It expands my knowledge a lot. I love to tap into Connie and Karen's knowledge whenever we can. This is going to be a new feature on the third Tuesday of every month. So mark your calendars and send us your questions. If you guys have questions throughout the month that don't need answered immediately, but it's still something that you'd like to touch base on, let us know. We'll make sure to build it into the content.
Good. Thank you, guys. Have a great week.
Have a great day, everyone.
Stay safe. Bye.